welcome back to Book Banter. Jenn Bouchard is an avid cook, a volunteer for good causes, and a devoted Red Sox fan. Go Sox! She also happens to be a teacher of 25 years and the award-winning author of coastal women's fiction novels, First Course and Considering Us. Jenn lives in the Boston suburbs with her husband and 2 children. Let's welcome Jenn to Book Banter. Hello.
Hi, Tanya.
It's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I am super excited about Considering Us. This is a new release, a second novel for you, and so delightful. So let's dive in. So congratulations on the release. It's just happened in February 2025 for those watching a later date. And I was fortunate enough to read an early copy, and I absolutely loved it. I just sunk right into that sort of youthful era of I'm older now, so I guess sinking into that sort of boarding school era was lovely. So can you tell us a little bit about how the story came to be?
Well, as you said, I am a high school teacher. I've been teaching in public high schools for 25 years. So this is a little bit of a different setting, but teaching through COVID was really challenging. Our plans were just changing left and right, protocols, schedules. I went from having 5 classes of students to now 10 classes of students because we divided everybody up. And we were in person pretty quickly. We were back in school in September of 2020 with all of these protocols and procedures and schedules that had shifted quite a bit. And it was a really stressful time trying to juggle all of these changes and all of these different groupings of students. And so by the time I got to the end of my school year, the following year, the end of the 2021-2022 school year, I was like, okay, I want to start a new book, but I want it to be super light, funny, nothing too intense. I'm like, I just need to have a really good time writing this book. And so I thought, well, I wanted to do a bit of a, the one that got away, but with some forced proximity, because I wanted to force these 2 people to coexist and figure all their stuff out. And so I was like, a boarding school campus would be the right place to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And I was like, and she needs the job. Like anyone who's going to read this is going to learn right away that Devin needs this job. And so even though she realizes that Kyle, the one who got away from 15 years ago, is on the campus, like she's like, I really can't turn this down. And so it was the perfect opportunity for her. So boarding school was the right setting. And that's what led me to create this story.
I love that because I also sort of get locked in on a setting, and then it's like the story has to grow from that, and the setting kind of creates the tension and the it forces the characters to do certain things that they might not have done in a suburban school.
Right.
So that's cool. I love that. And so the setting is actually really immersive. Like I felt like I was on the campus, I love that. And anything like boarding school, college campus kind of stuff it's right up my alley. So I really enjoyed hanging out on the Rockwood boarding school campus with the characters. And was it actually inspired by an actual campus, or is it completely fictional?
So it's completely fictional in the sense that, like, I didn't go to a single campus and was like, this is what I'm thinking. But because I do live in New England, there are a lot of these kind of schools around me. And so,
oh, really?
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh. So I live in the town next to Concord, Massachusetts, like, very literary town, obviously. And there are 2 boarding schools in Concord. There's Concord Academy, which is like in the center of little downtown Concord. And so I drive by it all the time. My daughter went to summer camp there when she was younger and things like that. And then the Middlesex School, which is sort of on the outskirts of Concord, is where they've filmed a number of boarding school movies, like School Ties was filmed there and things like that. So so I've got these places that I can just sort of drive through and get inspired by. Also Phillips Andover is not too far away in Andover. My first course is in the Andover bookstore, which is the oldest continuously operating independent bookstore in the country. It's amazing. And
Wow.
so yeah, and the Phillips Andover campus, where like presidents have gone, and I have friends who work there and have gone there, is also not that far away. And also what I did was I interviewed friends of mine who either attended boarding school or who taught at boarding schools. And that's where I got a lot of help as to what life is like at a boarding school. And their names are all mentioned in my acknowledgments, but they were invaluable.
That makes sense, because
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that inspiration right there. I mean, East Coast has so much different, such a different vibe than the West Coast. And I love that with the boarding schools, like the campuses and stuff like that. And then do you like literally make a mental map, or do you draw a physical map?
No, I did. I really thought about, what the buildings would look like, the
Yeah.
character of the buildings. And I went to a liberal arts college in Maine, which is not that different from a lot of these
Okay.
campuses, with the red brick buildings and
Yeah.
things like that. And so I really, and every campus has like a small lake or pond, and they actually, they talk about that, in the book, about they discover, Devin goes on a walk with Kyle and discovers this little pond, and they had a similar one at the college they had gone to, just about half an hour west in New Hampshire. And so, and every campus is like that. Like every campus has this
Really?
little body of water. So we had, at Bates College, where I went in Maine, it's called Lake Andrews, but I mean, it's a little tiny pond, and we called it the puddle, and it would freeze in the winter.
That makes sense.
It would freeze in the winter. People would skate on it.
Oh, really?
They would cut a hole in the ice, and people would do something called the puddle jump, and they'd get all dressed up in costumes and things like that. They still do it every year. Not me. I am not a cold weather person, and I tried to reflect that a little bit in the book. Devin's not.
She's not a cold weather person either.
And some of my own personality comes through in those moments. I have to channel it somewhere.
I'm like, yeah, you want to be warm. Yeah,
I do. Freezing. I'm freezing right now.
I bet. Yeah. It's quite frosty here right now too. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to leave the house.
No.
If I didn't have to. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so talking about Devin let's talk about food.
Yeah.
If I had to pick my favorite parts of your novels, it is the food, because it's just so both First Course and Considering Us feature mouth-watering references. I was literally like seeking food.
Everyone says they get hungry. They get hungry while they're reading it.
Absolutely. It definitely triggers all the things that you need food for. And so what I picked up more in Considering Us was that your novels not only bring food into the story, but food actually is part of the character's journey. And I actually really love that, because it represents their memories, their healing, their connections, and so much more. And so I'm curious, did you set out to do that, to make food a character in its own in all of your stories?
Yeah, I definitely did. It was something really early on. I mean, I started writing First Course back in 2015. It was a long time ago. And
wow.
Yeah, it took me a long time.
But writing's hard.
You start. I had no idea what I was doing. But I definitely knew that I wanted food to play a really key role. So I don't know if you've ever read Nora Ephron's book, Heartburn.
I have not.
So that was my inspiration for First Course. And about a character going through, tremendous life changes. But she's a good cook, and she's got food helps carry her through that. And it's exactly what you said. It almost is like its own character in the book. So Heartburn's great. It's really funny. But the character's dealing with a lot at the same time. It's a movie as well. So I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now you say it's a movie, I go, yeah.
Nora Ephron, I mean, she's one of my big inspirations. And so she wrote, When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, like all those things as well.
My favorites.
So, yeah. So she's fantastic and a huge inspiration to me. And she always, if you watch any of those movies, you will notice the integration of food into those movies.
You're right.
Yes. So
Like
just,
deeply.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
now that I think
for that.
back, yeah, I mean Harry met Sally.
Yeah, right. Everyone remembers the deli scene. But even
Yeah.
like there, even
Yeah.
the moment where Harry and Sally are eating those enormous green salads, in that
Yes.
restaurant, and it's just, and they're just sitting there,
Just
and it's just, you notice that there's, he talks about the pecan pie and all that. I mean, there's
Yep.
so many, the apple pie and how it, what you have
Yes.
on the side and how you have it served.
Yes, and how you serve it. Yeah.
So like all of those things are really important in those movies. So
Yeah.
that serves as a tremendous inspiration to me.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that. And I never would have made that connection if you
Yeah.
hadn't said anything. That is awesome. That is cool. And I should ask this too, because this is a totally selfish question. Will you be releasing the recipe for those
Yeah,
cookies?
the cookies, I am fine tuning all of that over, the next couple of weeks, and I will be issuing that recipe because
Yay.
everyone's been asking me for it.
They just sound like absolutely fantastic.
Brought
So,
a campus together,
yeah, exactly. Only a cookie can.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, the characters are, in Considering Us, they were quite fun and diverse. And I love how they're all like very three-dimensional. Even some of the side characters, you really kind of understood what kind of person they were just by that, your portrayal of them, even down to Devin's mom and all of her quirks. She was hilarious.
Oh yeah, she's ridiculous. Like, give me the grossest place to clean. Like,
Yeah. And I'm like, you can come to my house anytime. I got baseboards,
it probably wouldn't be dirty enough for her.
It probably wouldn't be dirty enough for her. No, you're right. That's a shame. But she's pretty funny. I did, and I liked how the relationship between them was stretched yet tight.
Yes.
So I thought that was really well done. And Kyle, okay, so he is my favorite, the main love interest, right? Like,
Love him.
Would like to meet him in person.
Yeah.
And he has this role as a history teacher, and I absolutely adore his presidential facts. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
And so all of these unique individuals, I mean, right down to the artist, to the administrator, they're all so unique. So I have to know, how do you develop your characters when you write?
Well, this was the most fun, I think, for me, developing these characters, because I knew I wanted to keep it really fun and funny. And so I was like, thinking about traits that make people interesting. And like, how could I incorporate them in these characters? And it's a little over the top at times what happens in the book, and I kind of wanted that. I wanted that, because sometimes we have these moments in life that you're just like, what just happened here, and how on earth are we going to deal with it? But for Kyle, I teach U.S. history and I teach AP government, and my U.S. history class, I only have one right now, but like, that's my favorite part of it, is all this like weird presidential trivia that I can integrate into the class. And so I was like, for Kyle, he's trying to keep these teenagers interested in U.S. history. And it's a class that in most situations, like, they have to take, and they don't necessarily always want to. And so you have to kind of keep it going with these sorts of tales. And so I integrated some of my favorite presidential trivia into.
They're funny.
Yeah.
They're so funny. I didn't realize history was a requirement. So
yes.
It's actually an elective for us.
Okay. So it is required in most U.S. schools. It is required. Usually, you need to take U.S. history and some amount of world history, and then we have electives. Like, my AP government class is an elective.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. So it was in high school for us. History was one of the options, but you could take geography and all the other things. And I took every single history class that was,
of course, you did.
Available. I mean, that's a given. And I loved it. But yeah, so I mean, I would have loved to have been in his class.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That would have been fun.
He's the guy for sure. And I think that's why, despite the fact that he got himself into some trouble the year before, I mean, that's why he's still there, is because he is beloved.
And he engages the kids, and
Yeah.
that at a core level is what a teacher has to do. Is
For sure.
yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. So when it comes to story creation, how do you approach crafting a novel from like spark of an idea to finished?
I definitely was much more of a plotter at first than I think I'm evolving into sort of a hybrid between a plotter and a pantser. And because the book I'm working on right now, I'm almost done with the draft. I definitely had a big idea and I developed characters. So I knew where it was all going, but in terms of all the fine details, like I didn't have, every chapter planned out this time. Considering us, I was in heavy plotting mode for that. I pretty much knew when I started everything that was going to happen. I mean, obviously things change. There are things, your characters, as you go along, your characters take you to different places.
Totally.
For sure. And I mean, I really did like I told, there's an early reviewer this week who told me she was really sad when she was done and she misses Devin already. And I was like, I know, she became my imaginary friend.
Totally. I have a few of those. I
Yeah.
think about them every now and again. What are they doing?
Yeah.
And they haven't progressed. But yes, I totally get that.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I find that if there is more like a big unknown or a kind of a secret that's involved in a story, the more heavily I have to rely on the plotting of it.
Right. And this, and so like, the book I'm writing right now, it's definitely lending itself more to being a little freer with it. And I'm grateful for that, because with so much going on with, promotion of the other books, it is nice to have give myself a little bit of latitude.
Absolutely. And you don't ever have to fence yourself in. And yet as writers, we tend to feel fenced in by our outlines a little bit.
Absolutely. And, part of it for me was I've had 2 books that I completely plotted out that after a chapter and a half of writing, I said, I don't like this very much. And I threw them out. So, I mean, I think that I was like, for this one that I'm working on now, I'm like, I don't want to devote that much time to this ahead of time.
I can see that.
It wasn't a book that I had to heavily research. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with this one. And the freedom has been good for me.
That's a really interesting point, because if you do invest all that time, you want it, then you end up forcing it, and that
you want to finish it.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I can understand that. And forcing a novel never works.
No,
it backfires.
You know how it is. I mean, you're with these books for years. I mean, I'm still talking, in interviews about First Course, and you have to like your books enough to stick with them, right?
You do. Yeah. You have to, and there has to be something redeeming about the characters
that
you are willing to, that you want to continue to speak on as well. Like even when they're nasty characters, you still need to be able to have something to say about them. So you have to have remembered what that was. And I have not the greatest memory. So
well, our brains are pretty full at this point. I've come to that conclusion this week. We've written, I mean, you've written a lot of books. I've written a few books, and there's a lot to keep track of. And a lot of times I'm like, okay, hold on. Is this Devin? Is this Janie? Is Rachel? Like, who are we talking
about? Who is it?
Here?
Yeah, exactly. My biggest concern is if somebody comes to me at an event and says, oh, I loved so-and-so. And I'm racking my brain going, who is that? Who is that? And it's probably this random side character. In a book 5 books back. And I'll be like,
me too.
Who is that? Who is that? And I tend to not remember names of characters well. So it's, I'll remember the feelings and the emotions, but
absolutely.
I totally understand.
We've written a lot of characters at this point. It's hard to keep up.
Exactly. Yeah. So don't judge us too harshly when we can't remember what we wrote.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So speaking of characters and writing, now I actually know this because I've been fortunate enough to read a lot of your work. You are a multifaceted writer, and you've written award-winning short stories as well. And I don't know how you do it. And so I'm wondering, how do you find switching between like the long format of a novel and a short story? And does it require a different skill set? I'm imagining it does. I just don't know what they are.
I think it's just, it's interesting because I'm teaching this short story class right now for adults, and it's great. I'm so glad I'm doing it. I've been able to kind of bring together what I do all day with, all the writing. And so it's fantastic. And I definitely want to do this again. I told them, I said, the thing about short stories is it's a much lower risk. You are just few scenes, a few characters. You've got to develop their backstory, even if that backstory doesn't show up on the page, because you have to know who they are. But beyond that, there's nowhere near the complexity. You don't have that murky middle to deal with, which we all know is brutal. And they can be very satisfying. And so I tend to write a short story when I am just itching to write something and have it be done. Whereas a book can take a really long time, and all the research and everything that goes into it. When you're talking a short story, the one I wrote last year was like 2,400 words, you write that in a day. And so
that's my newsletter.
Exactly. Right. Like you can do that so easily now. And so, the great thing about that is you can kind of churn one out in a bit of a fever dream and then set it aside for a little while, come back to it and say, okay, what do I need to do with this? But it's very, very fulfilling when you need to create something and have that satisfaction of having done something. It's a great way to get yourself out of a slump.
Good point.
If you're feeling just kind of down about something that's happened in the publishing world, which we know happens all the time.
All the time, weekly.
All the time. Yeah. So we have those down moments. It's a great way to kind of get yourself out of that and feel like you've accomplished something.
Interesting. I've never looked at it that way before. So that's actually very inspiring. I usually look at it as very, and I've always looked at it as like gripping fear of having to cram an entire story into that amount of space. For me, it's like, if I could do any job in the world, I would be a songwriter.
Yeah. Because
I admire the ability to paint an entire picture in 4 minutes.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's, and the students I have in this class, like they've never written really anything that, in this realm before. And so it's great. And they all came back after the first week, and I'd ask them to at least try to write something, write a draft, write an outline, something. They all came back and they were like, that was incredibly therapeutic. Like that was the best thing I've done in so long, so I think that they can be really helpful just on a very personal level to write.
Yeah. Even if you're not publishing them, even if you're not,
then you can decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah. So. Oh, I love that. So everybody should go out and write some short stories. That's a little inexpensive therapy.
Yeah, totally. Very low risk, very low cost.
Also, I guess it allows you to explore, maybe say you're grappling with an issue and you want to sort of understand it. I mean, that's where I write that basically. Absolutely. That's why I write. To try and understand something. And that is in a short story form. I might progress. Quite quickly. That's really cool. I love that. You're brilliant. That's brilliant.
Not so sure about that, but.
So your days, you do so much. You have to be jam-packed. You're a full-time teacher, a mom to 2. You volunteer. You teach writing related classes, and somewhere you still cook for your family. When do you write?
It's really hard. I definitely can write more in the summers when I'm not teaching all day. So that certainly is where that's when I start a book, is like as soon as school's over at the end of June is when I start actually writing, because my goal is always to have around 30,000 words done by the end of the summer so that I can finish it in the fall. I did not finish. My goal was to finish the book I'm working on right now by New Year's, and I did not. I'm almost there. I'm about, 15,000 words away right now, which, so hopefully.
Sometimes that's finished.
I know. So, and I write short books. So it's, I'm in a good place. Like I'm around 57,000 words right now. So
Oh, that's pretty good.
yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And it definitely, I know where it's all going. And so I can do it. I just have to have the time to do it. But, um, during the school year, I have to try to carve out these little blocks of time. So, for instance, like my daughter goes to 2 hours of softball practice on Sundays. I've discovered a coffee shop like 10 minutes from there that I really like, because it's so hard in the winter because so many of the places, the tables they do have are right by the door.
It's cold.
And so I found a place where there are tables away from the door. It's like, that's my criteria now. I don't want to be by a swinging open door in the winter.
No kidding.
So yeah, so I'm always like, I'll take her to softball because that at least gets me,
You get at least an
out of
hour
the
and a
house,
half or
and I
so.
can get some work done. But my goals right now are like always very short, like, write a chapter in their short chapters, like at a time. I'm not getting the big, the big blocks of writing done that I would in the summer, but that's okay. And I'll get there. But yeah, it's just scheduling it. It's like looking at your calendar and just being like, where can I write?
Well, not to mention is that like there's a mental shift that has to take place, right? So having that shift is, you have to be able to like step into writing mode fairly quickly as opposed to.
And that's what I always tell my husband, because I'm like, I can't a lot of times write in our house unless I tell everyone just like, leave me alone. Please do not come in this room for any reason, because like they don't really get it. The rest of my family, that like, oh, but I just had to ask you a quick question. And I'm like, I really need like everyone out for a little while. I need to clear this. And so that's why a lot of times if I can get out of the house, I do, because it's one thing if like some random stranger is near me, but if it's your family, it's like, oh no, I have to talk to them. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's my husband made a little do you know what a Laguna table is? It's like in an RV where the table so it swivels and moves around.
Yeah.
So he positioned one of those in this little postage stamp spot at our front door.
Nice.
And mounted a monitor. And so when I am in that space, nobody talks to me.
That's good. No, I like that.
Separation of, but I am running right by the front door. So it is a little chilly, but I get that. Like I need that completely block out the world because I'm going into another world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you need to tune all that out.
You absolutely do. Yep. I totally agree. I get that. Oh, first world problems.
I know.
So if you have to schedule in that writing time, how do you read? Do you have time to read? And when you do read,
it tends to be also in spurts. Yeah. I read a bunch over the holiday break at the end of December, which was great. And I just read Annabelle Monaghan's Summer Romance, which was fantastic, and is actually going to be a comp for the book I'm writing right now. So
nice.
When you discover those comps, I mean, they're so hard.
Hard.
I struggled so much with this, and I was like, oh no, this is great. And so that was a really good find. And so I just picked up Nora Goes Off script, which is another one. Books.
Oh, that actually looked quite good. Yeah.
I'm gonna read that eventually, but I've owed another author a blurb for a long time. I feel so badly. I need to do that. I struggle to read PDFs, but I need to for this, and so I don't have a Kindle. Like I just
I just use the Kindle app.
Yeah.
If you use on my iPad.
Okay. So I need to be better about that kind of thing, but
that's hard.
I need to get this done, and I feel terrible about it, and so I need to get that done, and I've got, as like we all do, I have a stack like that, of books to read, and you know how it is. Like we have so many friends who have written amazing books, and I want to read them all. So,
I know. I want to have consumed them, but I don't have necessarily the time to actually sit down and read them all.
I know, but I love reading so much, and it's always been so important to me. So
is your go-to romance or rom-com?
I mean, Jennifer Weiner is my all-time favorite author. I mean, she is probably my biggest kind of reading inspiration. and just seeing her career and what she's managed to do. And it's so amazing because I said this on another interview. When I read The Breakaway over the summer, and I had expected to be like kind of about it because it was about like bike riding, and I was like, I have a
Oh,
bike that I ride like once a year. Like I'm just not into this. This is going to be like, because she has gotten so into bike riding personally and has done,
okay.
and it's really admirable what she's done with it. But I'm like, is this going to be like a woman finds herself through a bike? Like I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
wild on a bike.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know if I'm going to be into this. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Really?
She did, it's like my husband asked me, he goes, she still is good. I go, she did it again. I'm like, she's fantastic. So
I love that.
I admire her career so much. And I did get to, I think I may have told you this. I did get to meet her in Newport, Rhode Island in 2021, and it was so fantastic. So
I love that. And it's always nice when the people we admire are wonderful people in person.
oh, she's hilarious. Oh my gosh. So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great to meet your heroes and have them
Yes.
live up to what you hope they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, not always the case, but it's such a bonus when it works out. That's awesome. So what book have you read recently that you would want to tell your best friend about?
So I think it was Summer Romance. My sister
Yeah.
actually asked me, and she's like, she does audiobooks, and primarily usually has one going on her Kindle and one audio going at the same time. And she even swims laps with. She's got these waterproof. Yeah, it's awesome.
I have those.
Yeah, I was with her in Denver right before I saw you this summer, and she had it at the hotel. It was amazing. And so she was like, she reads a lot of historical fiction, and then she needs like something else, like she'll read a really intense book and she'll be like, I need a break. And so
rom-com.
like she goes, I need something really light and fun. And I was like, okay, Summer Romance was great. And I also recommended Sharon Peterson's The Do-Over.
Oh my gosh,
as
so
another
funny.
good option. It was so good.
So funny.
So
yep.
I said, those are your two. I said, go with one of those for your fun read.
And the challenge with swimming while listening to Sharon's book would be the
oh, you'd be laughing,
right? Like it's hard to swim and
water.
laugh.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. That'd be entertaining alone. So you've said you're working on something now, and it's almost finished.
Yes.
So what do we have to look forward to?
So a couple of things. I mean, I still have a book that never got published, and it was supposed to be Palms on the Cape was supposed to be published in October of 2023.
That's right.
My publisher has closed, and I have my rights back to it. So my goal here is to get through this book launch and then to figure out a path forward for Palms on the Cape. So it's professionally edited.
It's all ready to go.
Yeah, the same editor I used for First Course and Considering Us edited it. So it is in great shape. It needs to be formatted and it needs a cover. Yeah, I know.
Super easy.
I know, but I'm going to see, I got to figure out the right path for it. And so that's coming up, and that is set on Cape Cod. Tons of food, owner of an upscale beach bar, the verge of turning 40. And
life changes.
Her best friend is a guy who is a former Red Sox relief pitcher. This is my kind of book, Jen. It's a bit of a When Harry Met Sally meets Gilmore Girls, and I
love that. That's a great comp.
So it'll eventually be part of our lives. So we just have to find the right path for it. And then the book I'm finishing right now is what I call my baseball book, and it is a female high school baseball coach and a male high school softball coach, and his family owns an Italian restaurant, and actually he is the cook in the equation. So he cooks for her.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like it. All the things about that.
Yeah. And there's so much garlic in this book, and like it is, you can smell it as you read it.
I like that. That's fun. Oh, that's exciting. So we've got, do you have a plan for that? Like maybe 2026?
So we'll see. I mean, I've got to figure out what the next steps for all of this is. So I've got some decisions to make.
Those take time too.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that we got
Was.
to chat about first course and considering us and all the things we have to look forward to. So, friends, you can find Jenn's books, both of them, First Course and Considering Us, at your favorite online bookstore. And be sure to check out her website for upcoming events. She is super active in her community. She's everywhere in Massachusetts that you can be. And you should pop by the bookstores for signings and interviews and everything like that. Book events, got a lot going on in February. Until next time, everyone, happy reading.